This is your servant. I'll be taking you through theology briefly, and I know I want to talk about theology. It's very interesting. A lot of people have done theology in the past and all that, but there are some few areas that I feel I really need to take you through, which will give you the appetite for more search. And so, by this, we call it introduction to theology, and tentatively, we'll be looking at the nature of theology. We'll move on to the purpose of theology. And so to talk about the nature of theology, we'll be looking at two areas, the purpose of theology, the mission of theology, the subdivisions of theology, the methods of theology, and then perhaps we'll try to draw a conclusion that, and wherever you go in the world, if you want to do theology, this is the area. I'm just giving you a brief overview of it, where wherever you go in your life, you want to do, whether masters or PhD, you still have to go through some of these preliminaries. So today I'll just be taking you through a little bit of a history of theology. Because of time, we might not get into the meaning of theology, but I just felt like, you know what, let's go and then dig into why theology, where it came from. Then you have that idea of getting it there. So quickly, we have to go into the history of it. And what we talk about the history of theology, then, you know, Socrates and the others will be coming in. Socrates, train, Plato, train, Aristotle, and then in that order, it continued. So Plato was the first person to use the word theology. And his context of the use of the word theology was to the gods and attributing the discoveries that they made to the gods. And so that was it. His was not to the God we know, or the Koma Enyame. All right. How did you get a story from here gradually before we begin to move? And so he moves again to continue his argument, but then the next argument was brought by his student again. So now we see another biologist coming in, because you know that Plato was also a Greek, and then Aristotle also Greek. And so the two coming together, Aristotle also, he began another system where he says that his is coming from the theological philosophy. So looking at this is theological philosophy. What is he referring to? He's also referring to the cause of being. He's referring to the metaphysics. He's referring to the first philosophy. And so he's referring to these things. Then he attributed his to a faraway God. And so the first Christians, when the first Christians came, they tried to, based on what the people have brought forward, to also propound theirs. Okay, all right. So the first Christian view, they also brought, so Christianity, now we've moved from Plato to Aristotle. Now the Christians have come. If Plato is saying that he's attributing the findings, that the philosophical findings that were made, scientific findings that were made, the discoveries that were made to gods, then the Christians have come to also let them see, say, eniema no a ye nyina no onyame bi no ma ye nse nyansa no asa nyame no nye se enyame no amunnim no oye nyame a oye nyame ba sakro. And so they also, the Christian view also brought theology into how we will look at it from our faith. So when Plato and Aristotle were bringing there, they never brought any faith, but the Christians are bringing the faith and saying that the clear knowledge of it, the nature of God, of the perfection of God, the wholeness of God with respect to this world is what we are also here to tell you. So we are saying that God has a purpose for his creation, including you who made that thing. So have we gotten it from that angle? The next one, the early Christian, started be careful about the use of the word theology. because already it has been used by Plato and co. to refer to their gods. Like I've been hearing some of the lectures taking you through how Paul theologized his, and Paul was saying that the gods that you know, to the unknown God that you are talking about, is that God that we are introducing to you. And so the careful use of the word theology was here because of the connotation at the time. Then we come quickly into the 4th century. And your research and your history will tell you that in the 4th century, if you want to talk about the 4th century, of course, historians and Christians who were there at that time, Athanasius could not be left out. So Athanasius was there, historian, Eusebius was there, of the Caesarea. And of course, the application of the word theology at the time that they made was the triune God. They made that to the blessed triune God. Looking at it, you can say Trinity, the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. And so they contextualize the message to that level. Then Dionysius of Areopagus. And this man was also a great man. He used the terminology, of course, all your search, you will see this man as very influential. And he looked at it from the spiritual perspective of the knowledge of God. That theology is looking at the spiritual perspective, looking at the revelation of God. Then his became, if it is spiritual, and it's something that is mystical. It's something that is mysterious. So he was looking at the mystical theology, the spiritual aspect of theology. So you can see Plato, Aristotle, first Christian, coming to the 4th century, and then gradually they are bringing it down. They are tailoring the thing down to where we will be happy to make use of. Now the 5th century has also come here with us. And we can't go to the 5th century without mentioning one of the greatest personality at the time, who was Augustine. And of course, Augustine quietly condemned most of the positions that came from the pagan theologies. I told you that the bringing of the word theology was not in the law's perspective. They started from that angle because they were learned at that time, and so they were able to use it in the environment. So Augustine came and said, "Hey, adebe mo ye no. Mo say ye ka enyame ho asem, ye ka onyame ho asem say enyame no ba akope. Ono ho asem ne ye ka no. To the true theology, and that became the Christian doctrine, what we call Christian dogma." All right. So the only true knowledge about the intimacy of God is what the church possesses and what the church teaches. So he came to streamline the thing to let us know that this is what is supposed to be done, and this is the church, and this is what we believe. So he brought the belief system inside. Now we look at the impact that the Christians made to theology, which of course we are very happy to announce that both the 1st and the 2nd century record people like Saint Justin, Irenaeus of Lyon, Clement of Alexandria, and then you get to know why we had Clement of Alexandria. We are laying emphasis on that because we are talking about theology. And that will lead us into the fact that the first institution that came to teach theology was in Alexandria. And then, of course, this great Christian theologian. So here, when beginning of it, when they are talking about theology, they will bring the word Christian. So Christian theology, Christian theologian. So it means that we had people who did theology, but were not Christians. And then in theological institutions, there are people doing theology, but it's another face of knowledge. Looking at it, Saint Clement taught the catechetical school of Alexandria, which I know the word catechetical, you know it already. So catechetical school of Alexandria being the first theological school at the time. Origen is also one of the best theologians the 3rd century. And your research will tell you, every research that you make on the history of theology will tell you that Origen was very, when I say Origen, I remember Dr. Yosin's place. Well, what's the name of your place? Oregon. It's Oregon. So if you don't remember Oregon, please remember Dr. Yosin's place, Oregon, and you understand. That was very useful, very instrumental. He made a lot of impact, just like some of you. In the next decade to come, the next score to come, your name will be written in the book of Chronicle that you came to lay a very good foundation. So this man was also recorded. Why was he? Because of some of the writings that he made. A deep precipice. That deep precipice, this is Prince. So if you remember your brother Prince, you understand precipice. That he wrote this. Once he wrote this, that was the first systematic theological treatise. The orderliness, he wrote that. And that one also belonged to his school, or belonged to the Alexandria school. All right. Let's not forget that Athanasius, Augustine were very outstanding in the 4th and 5th centuries. All right. Let's go to the Middle Ages. This one I'm just summarizing. Your search will give you a lot, but this is just summary of it to get the news about. Of course, look at the Middle East. That in the Middle East, did I say Middle East? Middle Ages, right? The Middle Ages, we have the schools of the School of Theology coming up from the cathedrals, religious houses, main theologians of the period, where something like you can talk of the Anselm, you can talk of Peter Lambert, you can talk about Aquinas, you can talk about the Beneventure, you can talk about the Vijon, Dan Scotus. Now universities started coming up, theological institutions, the university started bringing out the Department of Theology, coming. Hey, I didn't say me, hey, we have discovered something new and it's coming out. All right. And during the period of modernity, theology also had several specializations, which of course we'll be looking at that in the next few days ahead of us. Right? Now, when you talk about theology, you can't finish. None of us here can do all the branches of theology. Charlie, the branch of theology alone, if you want to talk about branch of theology alone, 100 them one by one, courses by courses, it can take you the next 100 years. Yes, because people have sat down to bring this. So we want to say thank you to the Plato and co who brought the idea, but we are Christian theologians. And so again, we have jumped and now we are around the 16th century, 16th, 17th century. And you can talk about great modern theologians in the 16th century, like Francisco Suarez. Talk about the Scribins, talk about Newman and co. Because Scribin and Newman were the 19th century theologians, and Francisco and co were the 16th century, just to bring it to our contemporary world. But again, there are other issues that came. This one, I don't want to go into it so much because that is not my focus. This area is not my focus, but just to let you know, you can read on your own, and then next week when you come, just tell us what you found on the semi-rationalism. Some people can say semi-rationalism, but others say semi-rationalism. You can also find modernism, and then you can find fideism. Go look at it. That how come in the 19th, the 20th century, the church had to address some of the misconceptions. Of course, the use of the term for the church is a bit technical. It's a bit technical. So it will depend on the argument they brought that will let you understand. If you take the word just like the word, it's going to be a bit different because at the time they had their own way of calling a particular theory. So semi-rationalism, modernism, fideism. Go read around it to see what did they say about it. What did they say about it? In the morning, I tried to go into that, but I realized that was taking more of our time. Because that wasn't my focus. My focus is not to look at misconceptions of theology. It's to rather give you what theology is about. And so if the teacher doesn't draw his timetable well, he will deviate from the main subject. So this is for your consumption. I tried my best to at least look at something small on the semi-rationalism, and that connotes that people were trained. That's what they say. That's why of course, the Christians at the time named it or called it semi-rationalism. They called it like that. We can argue about that. So they were saying that, of course, the misconception was that theology can never reach perfect understanding of faith. It can never understand faith. It can never. And they were saying that the theologian can never abandon the guardians of faith. Again, they were saying that theology cannot attempt to demonstrate the revealed truths. That is, to make them evident of human reason. And whenever you get to this area, then you want to talk about, you are going into the philosophical aspect. And so if you're not a student of philosophy, some of these things you take some time before you're able to massage it very well. Okay, right. So the magisterium of the church had to openly declare such pretense. You have to declare such pretense and call it semi-rationalism. And this semi-rationalism seriously oppose the teachings of revelation. The teachings of revelation. Because we are saying that theology is a revelation of God. And they were also saying, no, you need to verify it. You have to verify and all that. So please, you go back and read something around that and build your faith on that. And for this, I just ignore this for the time being. And so really look at the meaning of theology. From all that you have done, we want to look at the two words. And even this time, if I want to go deeper into the meaning, I will have to go and pick the word logos, pick the word theo, and all that. In simple put, the term theology comes from the Greek word theos logos. Theos logos, which means teaching, or which means the word theo, logos, the word, right? So the teaching of God, the teaching of God, the doctrine of God. And here, translating it will be the teaching or the word or science of God. All right. In basic terms, if a child asks you what is theology, you would say that the study of God. So if your child asks you, Daddy, what is theology? He says, the study of God. And you're gone. But when we do theology, we reason, we debate, we discern. So the word discourse is a very strong word when it comes to theology. Underline it, look for it, understand it, and use it carefully. So this is a course by itself. This course. Then reason about the nature, about the will, about the purposes of God. Theology. Nature, will, and purpose of God. Again, we cannot study God. Oh. You can study God, you can study God. You cannot study God. So God cannot be directly object of human research. That should be underlined. Nobody can come and say that we want to study God. In biblical terms, we hear people wanted to reach where God was. Were they able to get there? They didn't get there. They didn't get there. So that if we cannot study God, then how can we discern? How can we discuss God? His nature, his will, and purpose. We can know the God, the Lord, indirectly through two of the sources. We can know God through God's revelation. We can know God through people's faith. So these are the two areas that we can know God. Through people's faith and through God's revelation. Theology, in summary, is a systematic study of divine revelation and human faith. So drawing it from that angle, we can conclusively say that the systematic, the step-by-step study of divine revelation and human faith. That is why the semi rationalism will say that it cancels the fact that theology is about divine revelation. And so all that they are saying that we can reach, we can do that. No, we are talking about divine revelation. That is what we hold. And again, Fideism, you also go and you read about that. Fideism was also talking about the fact that faith and reason. I know. I read about John Paul II, and then he was trying to bring the two together to see, yes, there are two wings. There are two wings, but you can see that he's not trying to draw conclusion very well. I read several articles on Fideism, and I still see that, yes, that is why it's theological. It still must do more. Several articles. I remember one of the articles that school like Princeton University review, and they said, no, they still couldn't find the real meaning of Fideism. They still couldn't find it in all the book reviews that they made on that. I'm sure as you go through, you also get this. This is why theology becomes broader and broader and broader as we continue. But do your bit of research then. So I won't go here. Let me quickly end at where I was, unless you want me to go further. That's so that we can discuss what you have done. Then next time we'll look at the process of God, the acts of God, and all that. So let me end from the story up to the. But then the next time we meet, I'll try to wrap up whatever I need to wrap up with you. All right. Any question?
Papa, I have a question.
Yes, my brother.
Bacho, so when you talk about divine revelation, is it through the word? Is it through prophets? Is it what Bacho bit me elaborate kakra on divine revelation?
All right, thank you. First of all, let me go to don't let us get confused about the word divine. So let's go to God's revelation. God's revelation, that God continues to reveal himself. So he revealed himself to us in several ways. That is why when we get to the deeper level of it. So example, let me quickly, for the sake of this discussion, let me go here. So the text of theology here is mission-minded. So the idea of the Lord's revelation is to be what? Always visit something, like have something to do, vision, mission, go, make disciples. So the Lord continues to reveal to us, historically informed, context sensitive, practically applied, scientifically plausible. So talk about the revelation of God. God continues to speak to us. God continues to reveal himself in several ways. For instance, when he come here, he reveal himself looking at having Christ as a center. He reveal himself through interpretation, hermeneutics, interpretation. He reveal himself soteriologically. He reveal himself eschatologically. He reveal himself in a pneumatological way. He revealed himself in the anthropological way. He revealed himself in the ecclesiastical way. He revealed himself in the eschatological. These are the ways that God revealed himself. So the nyame yi ne ho adi kyerɛ ne ma no, obi hunu nyame sɛ ɔyɛ ɛkyerɛ nyankopɔn. Obi hunu nyankopɔn sɛ ɔyɛ nne nyankopɔn. Obi hunu nyankopɔn sɛ ɔyɛ daa nyankopɔn. Nti nyame yi ne ho adi kyerɛ ne ma. Sisi a meka sɛ yɛ ni adanse a obi tell mede ase o nti de bia na mekɔ adwuma meda na de sɛ de mekɔ adwuma manda cross enti dia agɔwe pa enti sɛ nyame yi ne ho adi akyerɛ kɔ we abɔhu bi kra na wokɔ adwuma na wada de testimony sɛn opening from hospital ka me say de nyame ayɛ me pa ɛsi me bia na ɔkɔ awɔ so pa na nyɛ izo nyame nko a no so da pa na fe ne tie na akora na oba. That's why we say God reveals himself through people. To the two are wings. The two are twins. They come together. like that. The revelation of God can never be explained in one word, but in several branches. Several branches. All right.
That's it.
Any question, please? I don't want to go further. I want to make sure that we are able to understand this, and then we end it here so that you prepare your mind for the next one.
Papa Mpacho, we a general question, just for knowledge sake.
Oh, great.
So I know that there are so many schools that have Department of Theology or School of Theology. And I've been to places, for example, 2 years ago, I attended a graduation at Harvard School of Divinity. And well, when I heard divinity, I thought all these people, graduate young. But there were all kinds of people, Muslims, lesbians, and all these people with different degrees from the School of Divinity. So I was confused. So I don't know, can you help me distinguish between divinity and theology?
Thank you, my brother. Thank you. It's just like, it's a branch, okay? And it's not just a branch, but it could be a department, okay? Let me take you to this one and you give me more. This is all about the subdivision of theology, okay?
Okay.
You have biblical studies, systematic theology, church history, practical theology, missiology. Okay, so with the four, I'm basing this one on my department or my institution. This is what we take it to be the branches. Okay, we can call this school of theology. Another institution can call it School of Divinity. Okay, another school can call it religious studies department. Okay, so here, when we say that divinity school, it hasn't changed anything. It has not changed anything. It's a study of religion. It's a study of religion. So they are studying the religion and call it School of Divinity. However, if you come to biblical studies, you have various things. So it depends on the subject or the area which they were studying that informed the institution to give that department's name. Okay, to give that department's name. For example, when you go to University of Cape Coast, we have the religious department, religion, study of religion. If we go to Tech, we have study of religion department. If you come to University of Ghana, we have the religious studies department, which of course when you're going is on the right side and all that. So all depends. So divinity is not a new thing at all. It's a terminology for religious studies.
Okay, thank you.
That's fine. Adeɛ biara yɛfrɛ no divine biara adeɛ bi a ɛyɛ kronkron, adeɛ bi a ɛho te. Okay, all right. All right. Any other question? So to bring my message to us, let me quickly let you know that today we have looked at the history of the theology and picked it from Plato's view, moved again into Aristotle's view, faraway God, and then we came to the Christian view. They were looking at it from the perfect will of God. Then we come to the early writers who were using the word carefully, the mystical theologia, to refer to the Blessed Trinity, the spiritual aspect. Don't forget Athanasius, don't forget the historian Eusebius. Don't forget the 5th century theologians like St. Augustine, who actually stood to speak against the fact that you refer to Enyame, Onyame. Don't again forget Justin, Renus of Leon. Don't forget my great man, Clement of Alexandria. Don't forget him. Remember him. Don't forget the origin people. The origin people. Don't forget them, the 3rd century. And don't forget my Middle Ages. Don't forget them. Atlem, Peter Lambert, Aquinas. Aquinas is one of the strongest persons. And Aquinas is a person that was able to play with Aristotle's findings. He picked at the point now maybe said now when the Aquinas were hard, say, but when I started to gain interest in the studies and realize that he uses the scientific way to bring God into being. Is the natural way of theologizing God. So power na o mame abrewa o tie krase na o theologize nyame a just ho bedru do no no ohunu nyame e wona kokoma mu no onya na na wa me ene na o tie kra na se nsuo to nyame na ama nsuo na to he just okona ne body abawo ni se ne nyame na ama body na bo just se do oyi nyame aye pa one as the theology of Prince might be different from the theology of Stephen, but all theology must go into revealing the nature, the will, and the purpose of God. So the revelation that you're talking about, the revelation in all level should give you the nature, the will, and the purpose of God. And no, I mean, where the or trowing our yet. Obi say me die no nyame no adita na me say esura bie na nsa bi ba na nsa no ne me kasa nyame na yin ho di acha no. Yes, Professor Kwambedi Akon of blessed memory, he was an atheist. He didn't know God. I said even at the university where he was doing his PhD, the Lord revealed himself to him. He said it was just one night he was in his hostel and God revealed himself to him. I mean, you know the children, and right from there he came down. Presbyterians had him, ordained him as commissioned him as a minister, and then he was the first rector of the Akrofri Cristala. Of course, he began and Akrofri Cristala has moved into a doctoral degree awarding institution, one of the best research institutions, because he saw the revelation of God. That's why when you are coming into the ministry, they ask you, right, about your call into the ministry. Your call into the ministry, and then you start from your children's service, you move to your junior youth, you move to when you went to the university, you move to how you began working, and then how you travel, you got here, and gradually all the things you are writing indirectly, you are theologizing to let them know the will of God in your life. Last week I did an assignment I was able to send to a few of you, and the essence of that assignment, that is to my institution. The essence of that assignment is just for them to know how the nature, the will, and the purpose of God has run through your life. So where you are, and how that nature of God has given the wisdom to apply to system change and to questions pertaining to the political, the social, the culture, and of course, the other settings and how you can respond to them. The nature, the will, and the purpose of God. God bless you. It was revelation and it was faith. Brother Stephen, you have not spoken today. I guess you are tired. I can see. Forgive me.
Yeah.
Forgive me. All right. So next time when we meet, we'll be looking at the purpose. We'll really talk about that. And then I think I should be able to